Hello, this is Elena, and I've drawn some fairies to paint orange today. I started off with this mango colored pencil, and let's hop right into it. This time around, I decided I did want to start with my paints, so I did start with acrylic paint first, just because I knew it would go down and stay down and wouldn't get too smudged or anything once I put it down and it started to dry. And I also decided that it would be a good way to get a lot of the color onto the page and also get out a lot of flats and things like that. Unfortunately, while I was opening up the paints to work with, because I decided to use some browns because I noticed that they were very orange, my raw sienna, the lid popped off and broke, and now I couldn't close it. So I was trying to use this paint before it dried out completely, but it did make it a little bit harder to work with because it was really chunky, and I had to use some water to try and like smooth it out. And then I went into my watercolors because I figured that that would be a good thing to use for the background since I could get a lot of coverage out of it. I had a lot of fun switching between paintbrushes, mostly because I feel for this piece, since it was on this multimedia paper, it was a lot easier to move around and work with than it was when I used acrylic paint recently in my Amazon coloring book. And I feel like I was able to really work with those paints a lot easier this time around. So first I used my Crayola set, and then I moved on to this other watercolor paint set that I have. It doesn't have any labels or anything, so I have no idea what brand it is, but it does have some really fun colors in there. And I had a lot of fun using, I think, 6 of the pans and trying to get the base color for the fairies' outfits and their hair and their shoes so that I could put the other materials on top. I had so much fun coming up with the pose for the fairies. So at first I thought I'd do something a bit more summery, but then I realized after swatching all of my colors that it looked a lot more like fall. So I decided it would be cute if these two fairies were walking through the forest in the fall with a leaf umbrella to protect them from the sun. And I feel like the colors really fit that fall theme. And altogether, I feel like it really did look like a really nice fall piece. Although, don't get me wrong, I am still very excited for the summer and not ready for fall just yet. But my favorite season is fall. It's one of my favorite times of year, mostly because I feel like it's not too hot, it's not too cold, and all the leaves are a beautiful color. I was also really excited to use my Posca markers. I did notice that the Posca was getting absorbed really well into the paper and it was making it kind of hard to work with. So I did end up kind of pushing the marker down a little bit to get a little more ink out, and it spread out way too much. So I ended up having to use the paintbrush to spread it around on the rest of the skin and try to even it out and also make sure that there wasn't any part that was too wet. I also decided with these outfits that I wanted both of them to have corsets, but I didn't want them to look exactly the same. So I had a lot of fun looking at corsets and stays and trying to figure out some cute shapes for them, and I really like how their outfits turned out. I also wanted their wings to be down since they were walking and going on kind of like a leisurely stroll, so their wings are kind of in sleep mode. I think my favorite materials to use this time around were the Posca pens and also the watercolors. It was so much fun to use those materials because they went down really easily and I could use my paintbrushes the way that I wanted to, and my hands felt a lot steadier and I felt like I had a lot of control with them. I think I would love to do another piece where I focus on Posca pens and the watercolors again because I think that that would turn into a beautiful illustration. And then after the paint, I decided to go through all of the markers I had. So I started off with things like the Sharpies, and then I moved on to my Ohuhu markers. The first ones I used, I think, are the water-based brush markers. And then I moved on to some other like Crayola and off-brand markers that I have. And it was fun to try and figure out where to put everything. I feel like the fairy on the left ended up being a lot more yellow toned, and the fairy on the right ended up being a lot more orangey, reddy toned. And I also didn't want the markers to look too similar to each other. And I was trying to figure out what to do with all of these markers. This brown one that I used for the skirt ended up being way drier than I thought it was. So I was like, oh no, I gotta put another layer of ink on it. So I did a couple different markers on top to try and even it out so it didn't look too patchy, but I feel like even in the end it looked a bit patchy. I also tried to use all of the pens that I had. I don't have too many pens, but like in my pen holder, I have a bunch of different colored pens. And then I also went in with my colored pencils for line art. I feel like because I was trying to keep my face out of the frame, the line art ended up being a lot sloppier than I would have liked it to be. I think I did get all the spaces and lines blocked out where I needed to. I just wish that it had looked a little bit better. It was also a little bit hard to get on top of some of those painted areas to do the line art. And it was also hard to get into all the little details. So I definitely think that I will allow myself to get my face into the frame next time that I do line art and not worry about it too much, just so I can get it to the point that I like a little better. The fairy on the left, I feel like her skin tone and her hair were blending in a little bit too much. So I ended up going over her hair again just to make it a little bit different and also to add a little bit of differentiation to the leaf in the background. I did also have some crayons and I used them a little bit for line art as well. It was really fun to look through all of my art supplies and find all of the orange tones. I was really excited because I feel like there were way more oranges than I thought there were. And I did also allow myself to use some browns just to make sure that it didn't all look like the same color. And I had so much fun using one of my favorite colors, orange, to color in these beautiful fairies. I hope that you enjoyed this video and I'll see you again next time. Bye!